And we in Texas, more than any other state, are a perfect example of how and why, of how the Constitution operates, how we can use the tools that the founders gave us to restore that constitutional balance. And truly, if we don't, and you'll enjoy this book just because it's beautifully done, it's beautifully researched, and it's a wonderful illustration of what's about to happen to America if we don't get serious about this. This is one of my favorite examples of a classic Republican Texas note, and you can just see a Democrat in Congress. This sounds like something Nancy Pelosi would do. Let me read you on the. This is from This is 1841. The last Navy appropriation. This is City of Austin Treasury Department, April 23rd, 1841. The last Navy appropriation being inadequate to satisfy the claims of the officers, sailors, and Marines of the Texian Navy, the holder of this certificate or his assignee will be entitled to $25 out of the first appropriation made by the next Congress to pay for it. All the people that do that, too, to our Navy guys and our Marines. But, I mean, look how that's got all kinds. I mean, that's a piece of paper money being written. There's nothing behind it. It's literally, there's not even enough money to pay these poor guys, so we're going to pay it out of the next appropriation. This book is replete with those, and it's what we are facing as a country if we don't get back to core principles. And the core principle that we all care and understand, we care so much about and understand so deeply, is 728. I can do this in about 10, 15 more minutes, and then I'll try to do it in 10 and take questions. Remember that the right of self-government, the right of locally controlled self-government, is so fundamental to who we are as Texans, to who we are as a nation, that it was the precondition before any of the former Confederate states could rejoin the Union. It was so important that, in fact, the way the Congress wrote all the laws governing Reconstruction, of course, the nation was founded on, as Mr. Jefferson said, Republican principles with a small r. But before a state could rejoin the Union, the Congress said they had to prove they had a Republican form of government. What's that? That means that we're being governed by our consent through locally elected officials. In Texas, that took the form from our first Constitution as a republic through our most recent Constitution as a state. Article 1, Section 1 of the Texas Constitution says that the right, and I can do this off of memory, but it is enshrining the right of local self-governance, and as the most important fundamental principle of our entire system of government. And the way to think about the difference between the state and federal constitutions is to remember that the state legislature is intended to have every power under the sun unless the state constitution takes it away. That's why the state constitution is so long and complicated. That's good. Don't ever let them, trick us into thinking we need a nice, short, simple state constitution. No. Every word, every paragraph, every period, every phrase is another brick in the wall protecting you and me from the state government. It is in many ways like a shadow protecting us. The state constitution is a shadow protecting us from the otherwise supposedly all-powerful legislature. Flip side of that is, as we all know, we've talked about, you've heard many times, the federal constitution, which of course begins and ends with we the people. All the English teachers in the room will know that the most important part of any document is the beginning and the end, and of course the founders understood that. It begins with we the people and it ends with the 10th Amendment, the 9th and the 10th together, actually. It's easy to forget about the 9th Amendment, but it's extraordinarily important. The 9th Amendment essentially says just because the Constitution mentions a power given to the federal government or says that a power is reserved to the people or the states, that doesn't mean it diminishes in any way the powers reserved to the people. And then it gets to the 10th Amendment, which of course we all know says that all power not specifically delegated to the United States by the Constitution are reserved to the states or to the people. So with that in mind, we've got a very limited federal government and a very what is supposed to be an all-powerful state government with most power reserved to us. Here's how to think about the federal Constitution, the way our American system of government operates. And before I even get to that, let me ask you this question. I always ask this to young people that visit the Capitol. If you understand the answer to this question, you've got American constitutional law. Who is the one class of Americans who have no rights? Now, I'm gonna I got to listen carefully. It really is it's a trick question, I admit. Who, living, breathing today, who are the class of people in America who have no rights? Zero. Not prisoners. No, not prisoners serving time. Of course, the Constitution and the 14th Amendment, one of the great aggravations of Brownsville had actually people driving up from Matamoros, dropping the kids off at the school in Brownsville and going right back across the river. Brownsville got sick and tired of it in the 70s and said, we can't afford it, so we're not, got to be an American citizen. That goes all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, no, 14th Amendment says persons. Who has no rights in America? Who? Now, illegal aliens are, because again, the Constitution are persons. Remember, when the time the Constitution is written, we may have a little over 8, forgive me. If the Constitution was written at a time, most of the country is wilderness. So they wrote persons. The unborn have rights, absolutely have rights, because there's two people involved. There's the mom and there's the baby. So, but I have to limit it. I say people that are breathing air, they're right here walking around in America today. Who has no rights?
Politicians.
Why? Now, why politicians? What does that mean? What do we mean? Why elected officials? That's the right answer. Let's think it through. Because once you understand this, and I've seen I literally had to sue that federal judge for years and fight this twilight battle with Dan Morales, who I knew was lying, and all the rest of them. Now finally, wham! I learned this from Mr. Jefferson, who learned it from Baron de Montesquieu in The Spirit of Laws. Why elected officials? They are our servants. And the way to think about it, you're exactly right. As Mr. Jefferson learned from Baron de Montesquieu, think about this. Elected officials have no rights, only the duty to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution. As a father, as a husband, as a citizen of Texas, I have all the rights everybody else does. But in my official capacity as your representative to the federal legislature, I have only the duty to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of Texas and the United States. Because whether it be the oath of office for a justice of the peace or the President of the United States, that oath does not create any rights. We have, as a class of people, in my official capacity, I have zero rights. Only the duty to enforce the law. Because we, of course, understood in this nation, unlike any other ever created in the history of humanity, when you visit the Smithsonian and that Tower of Time, it's just so extraordinary, and then you drop one little hair right on the top of those billions of years, that's America. One faint little hair at the top that, if we're not careful, we'll lose it. And we can do this. This works. It's absolutely bulletproof. I'll never have enough time to explain this on television, but it works. And here's why it works. Because we, of course, understood that, again, that we didn't have to rely on prince or kings being in a good mood to give us some right or power or privileges. We got it all directly as free people from the hand of God. And here's the way to think about it.